This is the most overstimulated I've ever been filming a YouTube video before in my life. Like, hi guys, welcome back to my channel. I would say I'm excited to film this video, but I'm not because of the sheer amount I have to go through. Curse me for reading too much. Anyway, today I'm going to be ranking every single book I've read in 2026 so far. I think I've read 55 books, 56 books, one of the two. I didn't actually count when I made the list, which would have made a lot of sense, but I was stressed out as it is. So today we've got the assistance of my iPad, which has the list on it. So let's just get straight into it. I don't think I have a lot else to say. The worst book I have read so far this year is To Sir Philip with Love. I don't think anyone's surprised to hear this. I slate this book any chance I get. And honestly, I rewatched my reading wrap up when I read this book. I don't think I was mean enough when I was talking about this. I genuinely think, and I really do like the Bridgerton series, like, it's not that. I think, and it's not necessarily a time period because no one else acts like this, but I think this is the most misogynistic book I've ever read in my life. The way, not even just Philip acts, Philip's like the worst of them all, but the way Eloise's character changed from book 4 to book 5, I can't really explain, and it doesn't make any sense for her character. So, like, ignoring all the misogynistic things that happen, that was also awful. Like, the characterization didn't make sense. My favourite part of this book, honestly, was when these two weren't in the book. Like when we saw the other siblings, that was probably the best part of the book, which says a lot when it isn't their book. Guys, I got the books off my shelf in the order I was reading the list, so from worst to best, which means the books I need to talk about are at the bottom of the pile. So give me a second while I rearrange. Okay, I did a little bit of a rejigging of the books around me, so now I kind of know there's somewhat of an order system around here. Also, I did do a little count. I've read 52 fiction books this year. So I didn't include non-fiction in this ranking because I don't feel like right ranking non-fiction books because that's someone's story and like I don't feel right doing that. So this is book number 51. And it's When I Picked You by Sasha Lawrence. This is a book I read in my 24-hour readathon, so if you want a full review, go over there. I think the thing about this book is I could see someone liking this, I just don't think I was the target audience. So because we're kind of revolving around a pop star and a photographer, it did kind of feel like Taylor Swift fan fiction. And there was a lot of Taylor Swift, like the author of this book definitely is a Taylor Swift fan. There were a lot of Taylor Swift references. And I'm not the biggest fan of when books do references. Like, I like an odd one here or there, but I think with this, it was like constant, constant, constant. And I kind of felt really overwhelmed while I was reading it. So, for that reason, I just don't ever see myself recommending this book to anyone or picking this book up ever again. This is another book that was in a reading vlog. This was in my finishing my TBR reading vlog, and that is The Trad Wife by Carrie Hughes. The ending of this book was absolutely immaculate. I really enjoyed the end of this book. I think the middle of this book was like 200 pages of us reading her milking a cow, and I'm not exaggerating about that. That's genuinely what we were doing the entire time. And I just think the kind of mystery element of it really fell flat for me. So I actually just can't. I think if the ending like vibe of this was the entire thing, this would be really high on the rankings. Unfortunately, it was only a small part. We're going on to like our 3-star mid-level books, and number 49 is also the first book I read this year, which is Holiday Ever After by Holly Jackson, Hannah Grace. I can't really remember anything that happened in this book. I know it was very Christmassy. I'm pretty sure there was like a doll manufacturer kind of vibe. I don't remember anything about this book, which makes sense to why it's here. I'm pretty sure it was quite a cute, cringy book. Like, it was good for the season, it was good for the vibe. I will never read it again, and that's okay. I'm just gonna knock out a bunch of Bridgerton books, which I've put here. The first one is Romancing Mr. Bridgerton, which was Colin's book. Colin as a character in the show and in the books just really annoys me. I don't know why. So it wasn't my favourite book out of the series. I liked Penelope. I thought that was cute, but honestly, I just didn't really care that much. There's An Offer from a Gentleman. This only barely nudges Romancing Mr. Bridgerton, because Benedict is my favourite character in the show. So I love him so much. I love him and Sophie. I think this was a Cinderella retelling, which retellings aren't really my favourite genre, so I didn't really blend with it that well, but it gave me what I needed at the time, so I'll give it that. And then the last Bridgerton book is When He Was Wicked, which is Francesca's one. I liked this better than the others. I thought it was different. I think the whole love after loss kind of like storyline was really fun. I really enjoyed reading about that. I think that there was also, I don't know, all these books kind of have that misogynistic undertone just because of the time period. Next, we have The Goal by Elle Kennedy, which is the 4th book in the Off Campus series, which we're following Tucker and Sabrina. And when I first started reading this book, this was also my 24-hour readathon. I was loving it. I was loving it so much. I think when we got to the accidental pregnancy of it all, I was a bit more like, not my favourite trope, I can deal with it. And then Tucker started getting really weird and really possessive. And I kind of had to take a step back from the situation. So that's why it's here. Next in our ranking is In Stormy Weather by Chelsea Curto. I really enjoyed Chelsea Curto's writing style. I think, it's really fun, it's really engaging, love the romance. This whole book revolved around weather and storms. I know nothing about either of those, so reading the descriptions were quite hard for me because I had no clue what was going on. So it isn't really a romance I kind of blended with because the outside storyline wasn't necessarily my favourite. Let's Split Up by Bill Wood. This was just a really fun homage, is that the right word? I have no clue, to like the 90s, 80s thriller slasher vibe. It wasn't like anything special in a thriller, it was just quite fun, and I loved the whole setting and the vibe. Next, we have The Fundamentals of Being a Good Girl. This book I have a love-hate relationship with because I did really enjoy the romance, but this book is very spice, smart, heavy, which, if you know anything about me, not my favourite. I find it really hard to read. I just get really cringed out. So, and there was a lot of it, like that's what the entire thing this book kind of revolves around. So I found that quite hard. When that wasn't happening, I was really enjoying it. So that's why it's quite low on the rankings. The last one in this kind of section is The Viscount Who Loved Me, which is Anthony's book in the Bridgerton series. And this was probably the most different from the show. And I did really enjoy it. There were just moments where Anthony kind of cringed me out a bit because he's Anthony. He's a bit cringy anyway. I liked Kate. She was cute. I like this book a lot more than the other ones in the series so far. And at number 40 is The Someday Garden by Ashley Poston. I usually love Ashley Poston's writing style because it's so magical, and that was in this book, but I think the romance was non-existent, and they can't try and convince me it was there because it basically wasn't. Next is Dear Debbie by Freida McFadden. I forgot I read this book. I completely forgot. I remember basically nothing. I know I didn't like the ending, but I don't actually know what the ending was. Next is Love and Friendship, which is my first classic I read this year, which I did really enjoy it. More than I thought I would. It just wasn't anything special. It was really long as well, and sometimes I didn't quite understand what was going on. Next is Our Perfect Storm by Carly Fortune. I did really enjoy this one. I think there were parts where I was like, why are we marrying someone else when we're very clearly in love with our best friend? But I'm not going to judge. I'm not going to judge that hard. Next, we have The Open Era by Edward Schmidt, which is some of the best anxiety representation I've ever seen in a romance book before. Also, I really enjoyed the tennis aspect of it, and I think the romance was quite believable. I think the circumstances and the idea of the LGBTQ plus community in tennis and how hard it is to come out, and just those descriptions I did really enjoy. A Study in Scarlet, which is the first Sherlock Holmes book, which I read quite recently. I really enjoyed this until they suddenly took us to Utah, and for no reason. I didn't really need a backstory on the killer. I just wanted to know who the killer was. I didn't need a whole monologue backstory on that. I also read Nymph by Sophia Montreux, and I really enjoyed this one. It was very Call Me By Your Name-esque. We were in Italy. The vibes were absolutely immaculate. It was quite short, so it was like 200 pages, so I didn't really vibe with the characters that much. I didn't really have time to do that, but the setting was beautiful. Next, we have The Names by Florence Knapp. When I looked at this list today, I was surprised I put this quite low, but then I looked at the rest of the book and I realised I did probably like them a lot more. So, The Names, I think this was very heartbreaking and really a devastating book, but also really beautiful. I thought the concept was really unique. I think my issue with this book at times was that certain timelines and plot lines I didn't care much about as the others. So sometimes when I was reading certain like timelines and plot lines, I kind of spaced out. This is the last Bridgerton book, I promise. The next one is The Duke and I, which is the first book, and it's actually my favorite book. I think it's quite calm. It's really different from the show, but I think in a good way. I think the changes they made were quite good. I really like Daphne and Simon a lot more in the books than I did the show. In the show, I don't, because they're only in the first season. It's literally the point. They're not pointless characters, but I don't care as much. In the show, in the book, they kind of gave me a lot more. So practice makes perfect, which is the second book in the kind of When in Rome kind of series. Okay, the reason why this is so low, because I do remember really enjoying it, is because the audiobook narrator of Annie really annoyed me. Like, her voice is really childlike, and it really, like, icked me out in certain scenes because her voice was so childlike, and I was like, this is a bit weird. Coming in at number 30, we have The Score by Elle Kennedy, which is Dean and Ali's book. I was actually quite surprised I put this above The Goal, but then I realised how weird Tucker got. At least Dean was weird from the start. At least Dean was the misogynistic king he was from page one. I will say, after watching the TV show, I'm very glad they made the changes to the boys that they did, because I remember reading these books and being like, these are the worst men I've ever read about. But I did really enjoy this. I like the story. Ali, absolute queen. I loved her in the show. I loved her in the book. Do a couple more rapid fire ones. We have Thornbird next, which was Elle Kennedy's like thriller debut. I really enjoyed it. I didn't guess the twist at the end. It was quite enjoyable for a thriller. I thought it was a really good thriller debut. Next, we also have How to Kill Men and Get Away with It by Katie Brent. This book and the commentary on misogyny was beautiful. It was immaculate. It was funny. I listened to the audiobook and the narrator absolutely killed it. I was laughing at my phone, which was quite embarrassing at times. I just kicked my camera, so I don't know if it's where it was when I started. But next we've got Margot's Got Money Troubles, which I did really enjoy. I felt like the ending and our last plotline was really rushed, and I felt like there was no reason for it, and I felt kind of underwhelmed with that because I felt like we were building up to this big moment and we never got it. I'm rearranging because there's things everywhere. It's really stressing me out. Next, we have A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms by George R. R. Martin. This is part of kind of the A Song of Ice and Fire, Game of Thrones world. I bought this because I watched the show and I really loved the show so much, and I just love George R. R. Martin's world building. He's honestly the best. I love him so much, and I really enjoyed this one in particular. Dunk, my favorite himbo forever. Egg is hilarious. I'm gonna knock these ones out together because there's basically the same series. So I have The Wild Card and Gloves Off by Stephanie Archer, which is part of the Vancouver Storm series. The Wild Card is about the coach, and I really enjoyed this one. It also felt like a big wrap up on the series as a whole. And then we have Gloves Off, which is my favourite girl in the series. The grumpy. Honestly, she was quite grumpy as well. But the vibes of this were beautiful and immaculate, and I really enjoyed that as well. I also started my Throne of Glass series this year. So we've got The Assassin's Blade, which is the first book I read. And I enjoyed this. It just gave me a nice little intro to the series, is what it was. It wasn't anything special, but I was engaged. I wanted to keep going, so it did its job. The Tempest of Tea, which, if you know me, this sat on my TBR for about 2 years straight because I don't know why this book intimidated me so much, but it was so fun, and I love vampires, so I don't know why I didn't pick it up. It was just a fun little time. Nothing like overwhelmingly special. I want to continue the series, but it wasn't my favourite fantasy of the year, but it gave me just enough to want to continue. I also read Woman Down. Is that what it's called? Yeah, Woman Down by Colleen Hoover, which is another one of her thriller books. And I read Verity, and I really enjoyed this. And surprisingly, I think Colleen Hoover should just do thriller books because I really enjoyed this one as well. I guess what's going to happen. I don't think it was like amazing in that sense, but it was a fun time. I enjoyed myself. Got me out of a slump. I couldn't really ask for more. Up to number 20 on this list, we've got Five Survive by Holly Jackson. Again, Holly Jackson's thrillers for me never miss. They're amazing. This one gave me all the vibes I absolutely needed. I was scared at times in this book because we're in like a confined environment and things are happening, and I didn't guess the twist at the end. I had like a little smidgen of a suspicion, but I didn't know. I didn't really guess it. Next, I read My Husband's Wife, which I read on audiobook, and best way to go for thrillers, in my opinion. This was really engaging. I didn't guess the twist at the end. I found this one really fun. I loved the voice actors for it as well. I think just I don't know, it just the vibe, it felt really creepy. It was really fun. I read this at book club, I'm pretty sure, so discussing it was great. We have Daddy Issues by Kate Goldbeck. This is my first ever age gap romance, and I didn't know I liked age gap romances until I read this. I just think it was fun. I think the inclusion of I like children in books as well. I like seeing like parental relationships. I find that really fun and interesting. And I think the age gap was done well, where it didn't feel creepy. It felt just kind of natural these people were in a relationship together. Next, we have Dolly All the Time by Annabelle Monaghan. I found this ending and the last third act breakup absolutely sent me in a tailspin though. Just have power play. I don't like. I remember I really enjoyed it, but I don't remember specific details about it. I know it was like friends with benefits. I don't know. Next, had this piece of the book, which is Alchemized. I really did enjoy this. I think the middle section dragged a lot. I also think I couldn't rate this higher because of the sheer size of the book and the emotional willpower it took out of me. Next, we have In Our Own League, and we said goodbye to the Windy Six series, and it broke my heart. I love seeing women in like positions of power, though, so I loved that. I think the dynamic between Monty and Reese ate it up. It was gorgeous, it was beautiful, and I couldn't ask for anything more. Queen of Gold, which is the first book in the Last Hour series by Cassandra Clare. Cassandra Clare could write anything, and I would read it. I did enjoy the characters in this. I think at times it somewhat dragged for me, but even then it picked up quite easily. I love seeing the connections between the characters and our old characters, and it was really fun. Throne of Glass by Sarah J Maas. This was just, I don't know, it wasn't anything special for me, but it was fun. I had a fun time. I enjoyed our characters. Seeing Selena, she was a queen. Dorian, my boy, I love you so much. You're the best. I also read Crown of Midnight. I liked it a lot more. The ending of this was amazing. I think we knew the characters a lot more, and I think we learned about the other characters that aren't just Selena. Like, we knew more about Dorian, about the name I cannot say, so I'm not going to say it because I cannot pronounce it. So I had a lot of fun with that one. Into our top 10 now, and at number 10, I have A Court of Silver Flames by Sarah J Maas. Nesta, my favourite female character. Cassia, my favourite male character. Put them together. Honestly, what more could I want from this? It was amazing. I have been a Nesta defender since book one. I just love her so much, and she's just a bit of an icon. At number 9, we have The Compound. I understand why people didn't like this. Unfortunately, you make a book about Love Island. I'm going to absolutely love it. And also, I think the commentary on how we are as a society and how we view reality shows and how sometimes we don't really see people as people was really interesting to me. Number 8, we have Just Friends by Hayley Pham. Amazing debut novel. I love a second chance romance. I loved the setting. I loved the characters. I loved how these people felt like people. They didn't feel perfect. I really enjoyed it. Number 7, Beach Read by Emily Henry. Give me an Emily Henry book, and honestly, you can't go wrong with it. Love the characters. I have seen the casting for the movie. Not how I saw them, but I'm going to let the acting speak for itself, okay? I'm not going to judge them on appearance, I'm going to judge them on acting. But I think the setting of this, I read it during July, June, one of the three, and I had a lot of fun with it. It fit the vibe, it put me in the summery mood. At number 6, we have The Correspondent, and I want to write letters now. Sybil, please let me write you a letter. I was crying about an 80-year-old woman, and that honestly is what reading is for. At number 5, we're in top 5 now, is The Wingman, which is the third book in the Vancouver Storm series. Hayden, I love Darcy. I don't know, I just think they're banter. I don't actually remember the plot of this book, but I remember I loved it and it made me feel things. I don't know what about this book made me feel things, but I loved it a lot. Next, we have Reckless by Lauren Roberts. I don't understand how people don't like this book. I don't get it. I think I'm so obsessed with Kai and Payton so much, I could watch them talk to a brick wall. And I would read it, and I would rate it 5 stars. And that is what this book was. I think Powerless had a better plot. I think this had better banter. We're in our top 3. And third, I put The Night We Met by Abby Jimenez. For me, this wasn't about the romance in the book. I don't think the romance was the most amazing thing. I understand why people didn't like the romance, because boyfriend's best friend, you kind of don't go there. But I think the platonic relationships in this book were amazing. The final scene between Mike and Chris, where they're talking about how they might be, like, platonically, they're the great loves of each other's lives, broke me as a human being. Our runner-up for my favourite book of the year so far is Seek for Traitors, Son by Veronica Roth. I didn't know I'd be back in my dystopian sci-fi era, but here I am. I feel like I'm 12 again, but I love it. Veronica Roth making a comeback. I don't know if it is a comeback, but I've only read Divergent by her. So for me, it is a comeback. I think this book was amazing, and I think it explained the world building for someone who doesn't really read sci-fi very well, and I understood what was going on, and I loved it, and I'm excited for book 2. Give it to me now. And that means my favourite book of the year so far, which is actually a shock. I didn't think it would be this. But when I thought about what book did I like the most this year, the only one came to mind was Witchcraft Wayward Girls, which is my first ever horror book I've ever read. And I think Grady Hendrix killed it with this book. I think it wasn't too spooky, but the things that were happening genuinely had me staring at walls and scared of lights flickering. I was terrified when I read this book, but in a good way. And I think I really enjoyed the characters. I think the characters were great. The setting, it was eerie, but also felt realistic. Like, this could happen, and that's very scary. So that was me ranking all of my books I've read this year so far. I'm exhausted, I'm tired, and I don't know. I don't expect to see this at the end of the year. Don't expect it, because I don't think I can do like 100 books. I'm really putting myself out there. I'm going to read 100 books. Don't expect that from me. But thank you for watching. Like, subscribe, all those fun things, and I'll see you in the next one.